So we're at Merchant Osteria. Hi Ben, with Ben Quilty. Ben's chosen this label for his own wine project.
Well, your own wine,
yeah,
my label.
Your label. Can you explain to me why you chose this label for this wine?
Sure. When I knew that it was a Chardonnay, I guess there's something that interests me in my own work about the things that are incongruous. The fact that I make these highbrow paintings of very down-to-earth men who are not normally the sitters of paintings like this.
Yeah.
So there's something that I liked about the fact that it was then on a wine bottle, and Chardonnay in a way is the most incongruous wine to have with Evo Evans on the front. But there's something about wine that relates very much to my practice, and I've always thought of that woody, gnarly branch that can create these little tiny round pieces of fruit that then, through this amazing sort of mystical process, from my perspective, becomes this. In the same way that my experience of this man and people like that from my childhood have really informed me and been a part of my life for so long, that have really enabled my practice to develop and become what it is now.
I think, like for me, looking at this painting, I like the way that it's beautiful. Like it's got that beauty there, but it's an inner beauty. It's not sort of a surface beauty. So it's kind of like when you're talking about a grapevine. There is beauty there, but it's not sort of so obvious, I guess. And that's what I see with this painting. There's layers there. And it's like with winemaking. There's layers involved in what you're doing. In growing grapes, but also, you know, with what you're doing as well. It's.
I think my paintings work the best when the surface is very beautiful and there's a beauty about the image, but the actual imagery or the subject is there's a darkness to it. So there's that layering, which is what I've always felt about wine, is that we forget the process and we forget that gnarly bit of wood sticking out of this barren ground. And that layering, I think, is the most interesting. And quite often I think wine labels are just so closely associated with the fact that we're sitting in a beautiful restaurant with a beautiful wine glass and beautiful wine. The process I'm always more interested in, and my practice relies on the process of years and years of this man trusting me to make his portrait, and then again trusting me to put his image, or for you to put his image on the front of a Chardonnay bottle, and he was so excited by that. And Chardonnay is not something that I would naturally associate with Evo Evans, but through that association I think that's where interesting art comes from.
Yeah, and I like how you really get a sense of the person, and it's like wine. When you taste a wine, you really should get a sense of where it's from and the season, and all of those factors that go into making the wine. And I think with this, you really get that sense, and it's that history. There's a lot of history in his image here, and obviously in his life. You can just look at that and you go, there's so much going on. I think, you know, for me, you should also get the same thing with wine. It should have that sense of a story to it, I guess, and there's obviously a story.
Definitely. I guess it's another thing that I've always thought about wine, that it's come from that barren earth, that there's this real, literally the ground, the earth, and being down to earth. Evo Evans, I mean, I'm sure this will be the first Chardonnay he's tried, and his image is on the front, but there's something about it coming from the earth, literally coming out of the earth, and that process, as I said, it's always forgotten.
Yeah, you're actually in good company, because the only other person who's done a wine label for us is John Olsen. And it was a rosé, and he hates rosé. But he did a label for it, and we sent him something, he rang me, and he said, I love the wine.
Well, he's a big rosé drinker now, I can tell you.
Is
he loves it.
Okay, because he used to hate it.
You converted him.
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting. So it's putting together all those elements. There's so many elements that go into art, there's so many elements that go into making wine, really. And so it's sort of that juxtaposition of everything that goes in together, coming together in this. So yeah, I think it's great.
I guess I also like to thank you because it's so exciting that you think outside of the square or the bottle shape. Quite often I think they're really didactic. Like wine labels are so obvious.
Yeah.
And this is in a way incongruous, but I think it makes it much more exciting.
Well, I don't know that it is. I mean, I think if you look at it on the surface, perhaps it's incongruous, but if you take into account everything, the complexities, I don't think it is.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So,
Cheers.
cheers.